What's going on, Lakers fans, and welcome into episode 44 of the LakeShow Flow. I am your host, Gio. As the Lakers unfortunately fall to the Warriors 123 to 116, it was a game where we saw the Lakers show up late, show a lack of effort, and unfortunately, it was Luka's worst performance as a Laker, in my opinion. But before we get into tonight's game, I just want to say if you're new here or you've been here, please support the channel. Leave a like on the video, leave me a comment, and hit that subscribe button if you are new. Share it with your friends. Let them know what's up. But let's get into the game. So a lot of hype going into this game. There was playoff seeding implications. There was always that little, that inner state rivalry that the Lakers do share with the Warriors. And, LeBron and Curry, they were like besties on Team USA, but every time they match up, it seems like a big deal. They both like to try to outperform the other. There's a healthy rivalry there, even though it's all smiles after the game, before the game, and, in the off season and when they're hanging out and stuff like that. But tonight, unfortunately, swung in the favor of Steph Curry and the Warriors. And just it's unfortunate because coming off of that win, the two wins that the Lakers just had against the Grizzlies, against the Rockets, you got a sense of, okay, maybe this team is turning a switch. Maybe this team is gelling. They had a little meeting with JJ before the Grizzlies game, as I mentioned during my last video, and it seemed to have made an impact on the team. And so it was starting to take shape, right? But unfortunately today, I just feel like the Lakers just didn't show up to this game when the game started. It felt like they were just a step behind. Their hustle was not there. But I'm going to go over all the bad first. I feel like there's obviously discouraging things that we saw tonight, and a lot of realities that we have to kind of snap into focus and realize something. So I mentioned in my last video that the Lakers have been playing with house money because they weren't really supposed to be this successful in the first year of Luka, right? Not only was he coming off of an injury, which I don't know, I'm trying to pinpoint what it could be that's really holding him back, because his performance tonight and some of his more inefficient performances, they start to get a little concerning, because you wonder why, like what's happening. Is he not 100% conditioned? I know he's had some falls that might dictate, how his body feels right now. Maybe he's not able to be at 100%. He's had his arms been in a sleeve and wrapped and iced and all that. He said last time it wasn't feeling the best. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's affecting the way he can fully maximize his potential in these games. But as I said, some of these realities are starting to shape. Some of these things that I think us playing with house money, we got to put in perspective here. So Jackson Hayes is the Lakers starting center. Any size we have it starts and ends with Jackson Hayes. We do not play any other centers right now. I'm not even sure if the Lakers are going to convert Trey Jemison or Christian Coloco going into the playoffs, right? They probably will. Maybe one of those. They still got some time to decide on that, and most likely they'll probably cut Alex Len. But as of right now, the way JJ is playing this rotation, we don't really have a true center. And Jackson Hayes, unfortunately, has been playing pretty bad the last 3 or 4 games, right? Maybe even more. But when he's not playing good and we lose our one and only way to having any type of size, we have to play small ball. Now, if you play small ball, that requires the bench to really perform. Guys like Vanderbilt, guys like DFS, which is Dorian Finney-Smith, and Gabe Vincent needs to perform, right? It's a small rotation. Jordan Goodwin needs to be making shots. And none of that happened tonight. So not only was Luka having his worst game, and we'll talk about him, but the first thing that stands out is the Lakers literally had 0 bench production to be found tonight. And that's crazy because it's the polar opposite of what happened the last game. We go from having 12 made threes between Dorian Finney-Smith and Gabe Vincent to literally both of them shooting abysmal tonight. Dorian Finney-Smith is 0 for 5 from 3, and then Gabe Vincent is 1 for 5 from 3. And our bench unit combined for a total of 7 points. And they had one bench player, which is Jonathan Kuminga, who's obviously better than both of them, but he had 18 points off their bench. So their one guy they rely on to give them, a lot of depth, pretty much just outscored our entire bench and then some. He just went crazy. And Buddy Hield didn't even have a good game. And I mean, I know they don't really depend on him to have crazy games all the time, but I'm just saying he's one of their bench players that's supposed to shine. And Jimmy Butler only had 11 points tonight. So a lot of things really went between Stephen Curry having 37, and then obviously Kuminga off the bench with 18. And of course, it wouldn't be a Laker game without role player X, just a random role player that decides to go off. We had Brandon Pajemski, aka Pods, which I'll probably refer to him, with that nickname the rest of the podcast because I don't really want to try. I think I said his name pretty good the first time, but I ain't going to try it again. So Pods had 28 points in the entire game, but he had a 22-point half, which is just absurd. And it was just so annoying to see him get off to such a crazy start. He starts off with the first 9 points for Golden State, which is just like, why? Like, it feels so fake. It feels so like you're not doing that in the playoffs. He's really not, I promise. Like, most likely in the playoffs, we have some positive regression. And Luka finds his rhythm by then, especially when he's playing the same exact team and he's able to read the defenses better. But really, Pods is going to go off for 22 and a half. I mean, he only scored 6 the remainder of the game. And there were timely buckets, I ain't gonna lie. It's pretty annoying because when he would be quiet, right? And then all of a sudden, both of his shots that he made for the rest of the game just happened to be when the Lakers are trying to inch closer. But it was just a very unrealistic game. I would have rather Curry put up 60 and take all of Pod's points, put them on Curry, and then it's like, okay, we lost to an insane Curry coming off of a 50-something point game that he just had, right? And he still had a good game, though, with 37 points, which is just crazy. But when their second star, Jimmy's not performing that crazy, when the bench is basically carried by Kuminga, they're not having like a crazy bench game, and then it just had to be Pods that just goes crazy. And that's just something you can't really control, And people started pointing fingers about the refs, and don't get me wrong, there's been some weird refereeing, like all year. But the thing is, the other team found a way to win, right? So it's kind of hard to blame officiating. It's kind of hard to blame or just like beg for more calls or let that be the reason that we lose. Like, we can't really do that because at the end of the day, the other team found a way to win. And we could be as mad as we want that they found a way to win, but they found a way to win. And don't get me wrong. I mean, when it comes to free throws, they ended up shooting 31 free throws and the Lakers shot 23. So yeah, there was a discrepancy there. And a lot of Curry's points came out the free throw line. He had 13 at the free throw line. So I understand the frustration. I get it. But I just think there was a perfect storm of things going wrong with this team. And like I said, the bench didn't show up. And I told you guys last time that if the bench does show up, if Dorian is hitting his shots, if Gabe is hitting his shots, the sky's the limit, right? Well, neither of them did. Jackson Hayes wasn't really a factor. Rui showed up. Austin Reeves played a hell of a game. Austin Reeves was trying to shoot us back into it at the end when there was almost no time left. Austin Reeves was giving this team hope. He made 9 3-pointers, and his performance fell under the radar. He had 31 points. So he tried his ass off, and so did LeBron. LeBron started off really slow and then turned it up, right? So now let's move on. Oh, even Rui. Let me talk about Rui. 24 points. He was really good tonight. The thing was, like I said, Hayes not bringing anything to the table. The bench unit not doing anything either. And then Luka just being an inefficient 6 for 17, 0 for 6 from 3. He still chipped in 8 rebounds, 7 assists. He only had 19 points. Now, see, this is where it comes down to, okay, is Luka Doncic 100% healthy? I have no idea. I'm not in his shoes, you know what I mean? I don't know if his calf's still bothering him. I don't know if, he's not able to fully condition because of injuries that are lingering. Like I said, he's had his arm pretty much being iced. He fell on his back. You know what I mean? He's twisted ankles. He's had some knee issues. I would assume he's pretty banged up, right? So maybe that is why maybe he can't get a lift on his shots the way he normally does. Maybe that's why he's settling for shots, right? The thing that bugs me is all over Twitter, all I see is so many people, there are just so many people that are just ready to say, you know what, can we veto this trade? Can we get Anthony Davis back? Like, it's insane, the switch up, right? And then I got a player fan that I saw on my timeline that's just all about Luka, that's trying to say, Luka really needs to think about his future this offseason. And I'm like, okay, so he's going to think about his future, right? Which the guy was basically insinuating that he's on the wrong team, right? And I'm like, he needs to consider his future when he's the one who had the worst game of his Laker career so far. Like, Luka's the kind of player that's going to take accountability and point at the things, like he points at himself first before he starts pointing fingers at other teammates. So I don't understand. It was the first time that I've seen a Luka fan, like a player fan of Luka's, that was just ultra toxic. Almost like when LeBron fans get involved and when they enter the chat, it's like blame everybody but LeBron, right? And I'm like, okay, look, a player is capable of having a bad game and you just realize it was his fault. Just like I know Luka had a bad game. But am I about to be one of those players that, or those fans that's like, get him off my team. I can't stand him. Same thing with DFS. These players, they're either gonna step up and we're gonna do something in this playoff run, or they're not. But I'm not going to just, okay, yeah, we're done with you. Like, just get out of here. No, we need every single one of these pieces in order to be successful. And we're going to need DFS to make his shots more often than not. And I have a good feeling he will. I don't think he's too, small for the moment. I think he rises in those moments. Tonight was just not his night. Same with Game Vincent. We've seen him do it in the playoffs. We just saw them go crazy. They just weren't hitting him tonight. And it's okay. Luka wasn't able to fully set a tone, and he commanded a lot of, gravity. He still almost got 10 assists. He would have had even more. LeBron would have had even more. So would Reeves. In my mind, I feel like with Luka having this bad of a game, it only opens the door for him to want to get better. And there's also another reality and another possibility that maybe this team will not be able to fully hit its potential. Maybe it's maxed. Their margin for error is tiny. Maybe we never, or not never, but maybe we don't get to see the full potential of Luka on this team until the team is fully built around his skill set. When he has a better lob threat that can also play consistent defense, which Jackson can't do, right? Jackson's not the best defender. He's starting to get a little exposed. And when he's not doing his thing, he's basically a minus out there. But I'm saying with the team's weaknesses, which we knew we were going to have. Once we got rid of AD, we knew there was going to be weaknesses exposed. We don't have a true anchor down low. LeBron could only do so much, but that's the thing. The Warriors didn't really have size, but they had more hustle. They had more heart tonight, and that's what really killed the team. But when it comes to the overall, the margin for error, it has a lot to do with the fact that we don't have that anchor down low. We don't have that perfect lob threat that can stay in the game. No, we have Jackson Hayes, who's kind of just showing that he's Jackson Hayes. You know what I mean? Like, he had a good stretch, and I'm not saying he can't have another good stretch. He might even have a better stretch in the playoffs. Who really knows? We haven't seen it yet, right? But people are starting to write off Luka. People are starting to write off the Lakers as Luka's, future. It's just a lot of negative over one loss, and I get it. Nobody likes to lose games. Nobody likes to lose to the Warriors of all teams. Especially that's why I don't engage in all the shit talking online. It's like, why am I going to talk my team up when I'm not even going to be the one playing? If they let me down because they didn't play right, not only do they got to live with that and have to go back to the gym and shoot and figure it out, but also I really can't do anything about it because now people they're going to be down your throat saying, oh, what happened to your team? What happened? Like, why try to cash some checks that your own favorite players just weren't able to cash that night? Like, and it's a team game. That's the beautiful thing about basketball. It's a team game. Having a mentality of like, oh, well, my favorite player performed, but yours didn't. So let me just shit all over you and your player. Like, what type of shit is that? Like, I think today's culture of player fans is just so toxic in a loss like this. And it's frustrating. I mean, I don't have to let it, get to me, but it just kind of does. Because I see it and I'm like, I'm a Lakers fan first, but I'm never going to say, get Luka off my team because he had a bad game. He had his worst game as a Laker. And I guarantee tomorrow, Luka's going to make 3+ threes, and the Lakers are probably going to blow out the Pelicans as long as everybody plays. And we'll be right back to saying, oh, okay, where was this last night? But I mean, cool, we got the win. It's like, what have you done for me lately? That's how the Twitter world and the basketball world operates. If the Lakers beat the Pelicans tomorrow, they find a way to beat OKC in at least one of those games that we have coming up against them. Everybody, the sky's no longer falling. Just reverse everything. Everything's fine. No, but like I said, things were exposed here. The Lakers do have to really things have to really go in the Lakers' favor in order for them to truly be as good as they could be. And that's talking about other teams. I don't think things got to be perfect. They could win a messy series against Golden State if they had to play them. The only unfortunate thing about that is if the Lakers stay at number 4 and then they match up with Golden State in the first round, it's going to be an ugly series, most likely, just like tonight was. And I don't want to see them on that side of the bracket playing the Warriors and then having to turn around in the second round and play against OKC. That would be two messy series that you'd be lucky to win. Then you have to play in the Western Conference Finals if you even overcome both teams, which OKC would be the more scary one. And then you're tired and you're drained and you're beat down even if you get there, and you could end up losing to a team that sneaks their way there like the Rockets or, the Clippers, of all teams, and or the Timberwolves, teams that still have fresher legs maybe. Maybe not the Clippers because they got some age on their roster too, but I'm just saying hypothetically you don't want to see this team in the first round. I think the Lakers do need to really try to win as many games as possible and hope that they can sneak and get that tiebreaker against Denver because they need that third seed. They need to avoid being on the same bracket, the same side of the bracket as OKC. And I'm pretty sure when I looked at it, if they're the third seed, they would avoid being on that same bracket. So I don't know. I'm hopeful that they're able to do that. But as I said, against really great teams, like the elite of the elite, which means OKC, Cleveland, Boston, obviously, the defending champs. And I'll throw Golden State in there to an extent. But like I said, we had a Game 7 level of performance from Pods. And we're not going to see that in the playoffs that often. Like, we're just not. And, here's the thing. On a balance of probabilities, he's less likely to have that type of half, let alone that type of game overall, than Luka. He's less likely to do that than Luka just being his normal self. You get what I'm saying? It's more likely that Luka starts to look like himself in that series before he starts having that consistent 20-point games against the Lakers. So that's what I'm saying is, even with everything kind of going their way, and I'll give them credit, they out-hustled the Lakers. They had more second-chance buckets. They had more, it seemed like they had more offensive boards, but I think it was actually even, which is kind of crazy. But they had timely buckets. They had timely second-chance buckets. And it seemed like they did control the pace. They controlled the tempo. Every time that the Lakers started to inch closer, they found a way to make sure that they matched the basket. And they found a way to call timely, Steve Kerr just outcoached JJ. It was just not our day. And outside of that, our players just weren't shooting. So even if the coaching was great, JJ can only draw up so many plays. And it brings me to another point. And I know I'm kind of getting scrambled, but after a loss, you kind of have to think about a lot, right? So let me move on to this. So when it comes to the offensive execution, this team is not even fully peaked at all. I think the offense has looked more stagnant than it needs to look. I think the offense has a whole nother level that it could reach, and we see glimpses of that. But then we also see a lot of stagnation. And I think once the Lakers, and see, that's what it comes back to, though. The entire theme that I'm working with here on this loss is just realizing that maybe this team just doesn't have enough time to really gel, to really put it together. Luka's working his way through injuries. LeBron, Austin, and Luka are trying to figure out how to fully play together. But in between that whole phase and that whole process, there's been injuries. You had LeBron out for 2 weeks. You had Rui out for 3 weeks. You had Austin missed a couple games. Luka's missed, a couple games. And, been a little hobbled by injuries, trying to get back in condition. But, yeah, I don't know. It's going to take a perfect storm for this team to fulfill its potential. I'm not walking back on my words. This team can win the championship. They really can. But it would take a lot coming together a lot quickly, right? Everything has to come together very quick. They don't really have time. And I think I heard another podcast say this. I don't remember what podcast it was. But if that's going to be their downfall, then so be it. They just don't have time. And I think that's why we set our expectations high. But I think people need to also be realistic. What the peak is, but you know how crazy it would be. When I think to myself sometimes, when I'm just thinking, damn, maybe I can manifest this in my head, the Lakers somehow win the championship. And I'm thinking on the call, someone saying, yeah, the Lakers winning the championship, and Luka and LeBron, they gelled together so quick and they found a way to win this. If I ever imagine these scenarios in my head, literally on commentary, they're going to talk about how quick this team gelled. And I'm just saying, if it doesn't, though, then it's not going to. And it's not even unrealistic that it's not even something to be that mad about, because more than likely that's what's, that's just the fate of the team. It happened. The trade happened. Luka didn't play right away. LeBron gets injured in between that time when Luka is playing, and we see the peak of it, but they have to play perfect to hit their peak. That margin for error was brought up even when AD was here, right? They talked about how their margin for error was small. Getting rid of AD, which is the defensive anchor of this team, and then getting rid of Max Christie, who is a great perimeter defender, or at least shaping out to be one. He's still been pretty good in Dallas. You get rid of those two type of players, and your defense still looks good. You implement Luka, who requires a lot of usage rate, along with LeBron, along with Reeves, and they just got to learn how to play together. But they might just not have enough time, especially against most of these teams. Even though you inserted Jimmy into that equation, he doesn't even have close to the amount of usage. If anything, it just helps to have another, weapon out there. It moves Kuminga to the bench, so it makes their bench stronger. I just think inserting Butler, who's kind of at the tail end of his career, he's got a few years left, obviously, but then putting Luka, who's in his prime, that's a lot harder because they didn't have to give up as much either when it comes to the Lakers and, the defensive identity that they kind of gave up in that trade. Would you still do the trade? Of course. It's Luka fucking Doncic, and I don't care. People make it seem like he's just not gonna be that guy. He's just washed now. All of a sudden. Nah, man. He's gonna be fine. I'm just trying to be realistic. I'm trying to put my finger on it and try to realize, okay, is he hurt? Is he not fully there? Is he still acclimating to getting used to playing with LeBron and Reeves? I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to realize it because his efficiency definitely was bad. Tonight, it could just be a game that he throws out in his head and then he goes crazy in the next 2 games. Maybe he has a 30-something, close to 40-point game against OKC and they win that. Tomorrow, I feel like it should be easy. But maybe in OKC, he against that team, maybe he goes crazy. And then everyone's like, oh shit, okay, he's still that guy. Who knows? We saw him get hot against Denver. I mean, sure, he's had some falls. He's had some, like I said, twisted ankles, knee issues in between then. But I have so much trouble believing that this is just who Luka is after one bad game. He literally hadn't had a game under 30 points, and you can bring up efficiency too, but he still found his way to 30 points. He basically had a whole month straight without having a game under 30. So I have trouble believing that this is what we're getting now. This is where we are now with Luka. He just had a bad game. And it happens to the best. We saw LeBron having some bad games before. I mean, thankfully, the one saving grace here is that LeBron is saying that that second half of this game is the best he's felt since his injury. So maybe that gives the Lakers a little spark. Maybe it helps Luka kind of get his rhythm going because now LeBron's more of a threat again. I have no idea. But the good thing is we get to find out, right? We get to find out in the next game, which is tomorrow night. They play against the Pelicans, and I'm going to cover that one. And hopefully we have better things to talk about. I think at this point, the second seed chase is kind of dead. They kind of had to win a lot. They had to get these games, especially the game against Golden State. You have to win that one because then tomorrow you assume you win, but sometimes the Lakers play down to competition. So hopefully they can, play most of their players, get it done. Then they got to play OKC on Sunday, and I believe the following, is it a back-to-back? I don't think it's back-to-back days, but I think Sunday and Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, I'll get that corrected by tomorrow if I didn't say it right. But they got to win tomorrow night. And then they got to at least take one of those OKC games, I would hope, at the very least. Luka has a huge homecoming coming up against Dallas in Dallas, so that's going to be an emotional game. But AD's playing. AD's back. He just hit a game winner, right? And that's part of the reason why people are like, oh, we should have kept AD. It's man, people are so fickle. It's insane. It's really insane. But hopefully we get these wins. We really need as many wins to be stacked that we can possibly muster up. And like I said, there's things that we need to be realistic about. This team hasn't had a lot of time to gel. There's injuries that have gotten in the way. We have limitations on our roster. We need Dorian and, Vando and Gabe Vincent to all perform off the bench, especially DFS and Gabe. They got to hit their threes. We need Jackson to play at his peak. It's because of the lack of depth that this team just doesn't have. Goodwin, we need him to step up. I think JJ could throw Dalton in there sometimes when we need offense, but the way the defense looked tonight, sometimes I understand why he wouldn't throw him in. But like I said, I mean, it sucks. It was a bad loss, but at the same time, it gives you the ability, it gives you a chance to just put everything in perspective, realize that, the sky's not necessarily falling. It's just there was a lot of realities, and a lot of weaknesses to this team that we kind of ignored, because winning feels good. And I think more often than not, they were winning. And when they were losing, there was enough excuses, right? But even tonight, like I said, with the crazy Game 7 type, playoff type level performance that Pods had, it's like we still, with Luka having a bad game, we're still right there in the fourth. They start coming back, right? They showed up late, but they started coming back. And so I'm just not worried. I'm not worried about the Lakers against the Warriors. I'm not worried about the Lakers against the Grizzlies. I'm not worried about them against the Rockets. I think they could beat all those teams when they have a whole 7-game set against those teams. I just take the Lakers, right? Obviously, the Nuggets, I still take the Lakers. The only team that I think would give us trouble if we saw them way too fast would be OKC, right? And if they manage to muster up the strength to get past all these teams in the West and then get to the finals, obviously, you're not rewarded with anything easy. You have to play against, most likely, the Celtics or the Cavs. So there's a lot. That's still a long ways away, though. So let's focus on what's happening next. Hopefully tomorrow everyone's back on praising the team again. Hopefully they play everyone. I don't see why not. It's kind of a must-win game still, And I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions. Only Luka knows how his body's fully feeling. The front office has a job to do in the offseason. They got to get Luka. They got to get a better team around Luka. And it's not even their fault that they couldn't this trade deadline. It was hard enough to get him. You had to get rid of a lot of assets, And that's just what happens when you make a monumental trade. But this trade wasn't just for this year. And people need to realize that. And people need to stop feeling like now Luka's not worthy of being on this team next year. It's just, I don't know. Now I feel like I'm just repeating myself. But the point is, it's okay. It's okay, Lakers fans. The sky's not falling. I hope we win the championship this year. I hope they overcome the odds, because winning the championship playing with house money would be insane, right? We all hope that, and we all know that that's the peak. But there's so many things that need to go right. And that starts with the players on the court, the coaches executing things. Hopefully they can open up the offense more. Hopefully JJ gets a little more, puts the guys in the best positions to succeed, right? But at the end of the day, he could put all the things in order, but they just got to execute, right? He's not out there playing no more. He's retired. So these guys got to figure it out. And they have a short amount of time too, and that is concerning. But let's just enjoy the ride. Let's try to not take so much emotions into these games. Like, I understand. I get emotional too. I get mad. But I'm not going to turn on my team or turn on my players. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. But anyways, I've been yapping. I've been rambling on. I appreciate whoever does sit here and listen to me talk for these 20 minutes at a time. It's, I don't know. It's going on 30 minutes now tonight. But I told you guys last time I hadn't been on here with one of the tough losses yet. This is my first time, and obviously it became an event, but it is what it is. Hopefully whoever's still listening, I really appreciate y'all, and hopefully just leave me a comment if you stuck around this long, please, because I need to know who the loyalists are, and I don't care if they're just family. I don't care if it's just Joe. I don't care if it's Francine, because I know she be supporting, Joe's wife. And shout out to Joe, my co-host, my best friend, over a decade now, like a brother to me. He got his deployment extended, and we're sending prayers out because he's not in an easy situation. That's all I'm going to say. And we just send prayers out to him, and I can't wait till I know God's got him. I know God's got his back, and I can't wait to be back on here really soon with you, bro. But God bless him and his family. Prayers, if you're listening and you didn't know that, send prayers out to my boy Joe. But yeah, as of this game, I just want to put a bow on it already. I've been talking for too long. Just put things in perspective. And just realize we'll be okay. Like I said, prayers out to Joe, and I appreciate any and all support. Remember, if you're new here or you've been here, please leave a like on this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and press that subscribe button if you are new. Any and all support goes a long way. But that's going to do it for the LakeShow Flow, and we'll see you guys next time.